If you know anything about the PHLY Phillies podcast and anything about me personally, you know that I love trivia. And baseball trivia specifically is one of my favorite things in the world. But usually it's me asking the question. So today I figured on the PHLY Phillies podcast, let's turn things around and put me under the microscope as we play today's Immaculate Grid. Now, I have to be honest with you. This is actually not today's Immaculate Grid, Thursday, the day that we're recording this, but I'm an idiot. And in fact, I, for whatever reason this morning, played today's Immaculate Grid on the computer that we're using. So we had to go back to one that I didn't do. This is Wednesday's Immaculate Grid. For those that don't know the game, which the goal of the game is to not only find players that match both the description of the two teams or the descriptor itself, but you're also trying to find the lowest score possible. So you want random players, journeymen, relievers, bench players, because there's always an immediate answer to this, right? Let's start this top corner one. The immediate name that comes out to me, and maybe this is hypocritical, the immediate one that comes out to me is Nick Castellanos. We're going to hold off on that one for just a second because I think we can find a better answer than that. Let's start with the Cubs and the Kansas City Royals, because that one, for whatever reason, an immediate name that jumps out to me, not Cole Hamels, is Jason Hammel. So Hammel without the S, Jason Hammel, longtime starter. Jason Hammel is the one that jumps out to me on this one. I think that's it's actually less than I expected. That's, what does that say, 0.8?
0.8.
Nice. All right, good start there. Cubs and outfield. There's a million different people that have played for the Cubs over the years. You could go, the roster now with like a Pete Crow Armstrong. You could obviously go with the big time names of Sammy Sosa, like we said. Moises Alou would make sense in this regard. But let's go with somebody that I think is actually an underrated player in his career. I think somebody that maybe gets forgotten about a little bit. Shares a name with the board game company, I believe. Let's go with Milton Bradley for this one. Cubs and outfield. Played at least one game in the outfield. There we go.
0.8.
Now we're on a roll. Now we're feeling good. Mets, Reds. Ooh. As soon as you start feeling good, Andrew, this is where you get stumped. Mets, Reds. We'll come back to that one because I don't have a good feel for that one just yet. Mets, Royals. I think the easy answer to this one, it's the only one that keeps coming back to my head. He's a current player. Has just signed with Kansas City last year, finished second in the Cy Young voting. I think he's going to end up getting a pretty high percentage, but I think immediately I want to go Seth Lugo, but we'll come back to that one too because I think we could get a better answer than that. Mets and played outfield one game. Again, there's a million answers we can come up with. Let's go with a former Phil. We'll do a former Phil on this one. Let's go with John Mayberry Jr. for this one. I think that'll be a low percentage because I think he wasn't a very popular player. Whatever the more recent one is, whoever played in the 2000s. I'm assuming there you go. John Mayberry fits that one as well. Played outfield and 300 career home runs. This is all 300 career home runs. This is the one where I think you have to dig a little bit deeper than your, Barry Bonds, Hank Aaron, Ken Griffey Jr.'s. Let's go played outfield, 300 career home runs. Let's go one of the more, I don't know how you're underrated when you hit 500, nearly 600 home runs in your career, but one of the more underrated hitters, I think, in baseball history. Let's go with Harmon Killebrew for this one. Now this is where it gets interesting because I think now I'm starting to run into that's an obvious answer players, but let's go 300 home runs, Kansas City. How many guys had George Brett, I would assume, did, but it's probably too easy. This one is going to be make or break for me, I think, because I'm going to take a shot on somebody that I'm not entirely sure he hit 300 home runs. But let's go with another former Phil. Let's go with Raul Ibanez for this one. I'm not sure he got to 300. Oh, sweet. All right, cool. So 5 for 5. Now this is where it's going to get complicated because now I'm thinking of guys that either didn't play for the Reds or are too obvious. Oh, okay. This is where it's going to start to get a little bit more complicated. You know what? Just for the sake of brevity and the sake of trying not to get one of these wrong, let's go Mets and Royals. Currently pitches for the Royals. It's probably going to be a pretty high score, but let's go Seth Lugo. That's less than I expected, but 7 kind of ruins this number just a little bit. Oh, man. There's probably, I could go Jesse Winker for the Reds and the Mets, but I think that's going to be too high. 300 home runs, Reds. I hate doing this. I think it's going to be a high percentage, but let's go Frank Robinson. And I just keep coming back to Nick Castellanos. I really don't want to go with Nick Castellanos, but I keep coming back to Nick Castellanos. Let's hold off on that one for just 1 second. Let's go with the Mets and the Reds, because this is the one that I feel gross about. And I don't want to use Winker. I'd really like to not use John Franco if I don't have to. Cubs, Reds, we're doing it. Just go Nick Castellanos. It's the only thing that I keep coming back to. Let's just do Nick Castellanos. It's going to be like 10%. I hate it. It's ugly, but I've got nothing else. I feel like I want to go, if I'm trying to avoid those two guys, I kind of want to go Todd Zeal, but I don't remember if Zeal played for the Reds. I know he played for the Cardinals, and he played for the Phillies. Played for multiple teams that wore red. All right, hold on. Let's hold off on Zeal for just a second. I'm gonna chicken out, Andrew. I'm gonna chicken out.
Okay.
Let's go John Franco. I'm like 90% certain this should at least hit. 32. I mean, listen, we completed the grid, which is the main objective of this game, but 32 is gross. So what I want everybody to do, I know, again, this is my mistake. I'm going to be fully transparent. This is Wednesday's game. If you've played Wednesday's game, drop in the comments down below what your final grid score was. If you beat 32, the next time we play a grid, you'll get a shout out on the show as a congratulatory shout out to you for beating my 32. But that'll do it for us here on the PHLY Phillies podcast. Shout out to Andrew Frazier, as always, for producing today's show. We'll be back in 2 weeks with our next grid, but next week we'll have a different trivia game, and I'm super excited to bring you a trivia game that we are calling Journeyman, and I'll explain it more next week, but we're going to have different members of the PHLY staff be a part of this show. It'll be a year-long, MLB season-long trivia game, and we'll see who comes out on top, see who has the best baseball trivia knowledge here at PHLY. So thank you so much for joining us here. 32 is the final score to beat. Again, let me know if you beat 32 in the comments. We'll be back in 2 weeks with the next Immaculate Grid.